Good morning. I'm Malcolm Graham Wood, and I'm at Core Finance doing my CEO interview. Today I have two guests. I have Simon Potter, who is the CEO, and Eytan Uliel, who is the Commercial Director of Bahamas Petroleum. Good morning, gents. A very warm welcome to Core Finance.
Hi, morning, Malcolm.
Good evening.
Indeed. I wonder, as always on these occasions, it's good, although Bahamas Petroleum has been around for a long time, if you could give me an overview of Bahamas as it is now. It's obviously changed a bit recently, and we'll drill down into the various parts of the business after that.
Okay, well, I guess as you inferred, Malky, if you'd asked us a year ago, then we would have been a project. We would have been the drilling project in the Bahamas. But now we would describe ourselves as a full cycle exploration and production company with assets in the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, and indeed Uruguay, with assets that span the sort of maturity spectrum and risk reward profile of our industry. So in Trinidad, we have onshore production. We have 5 producing licenses with capacity to expand that, and of course cash generation, as well as appraisal assets, development assets. And of course in the Bahamas, as we'll get onto, I suspect, we've got the Perseverance 1 well drilled to spud before the end of this year.
Excellent. Well, I think the best place, if I may, is to start off with your heritage, as people would say. Let's talk about your acreage in the Bahamas. Obviously, Perseverance 1, with the timings of that and some detail on the well, the chance of success, the structure, the targets. Would you mind starting off with that, guys?
Yeah, sure. I guess the sort of first 10 years of the project was we've spent $100 million in reducing risk and reducing uncertainty associated with proving up the billion-barrel prospectivity that we feel exists in the Bahamas. Way back in 2011, 2012, we shot 2D and 3D across our acreage, which sits adjacent to the Cuban border. And established structures of a huge scale. The B structure is roughly 80 kilometers long, up to 10 kilometers wide, and indeed could contain multiple billions of barrels. We've had 2 independent competent persons reports that highlight that the oil in place just in the seismic area could be as much as 28 billions of barrels. The recoverable, we have done a pre-drill on the Perseverance 1 well, and we assessed that's 770 million barrels. But it's the lowest northern segment of the B structure. And in the event of success, then that will de-risk the whole of the rest of the structure, which sits at around 2 billion barrels. Both of those independent competent persons reports assess the chances of success in the range of 25 to 35%, which for a frontier exploration prospect is virtually a dead cert, I would attest. So certainly a very large prospect, and in terms of timing, we are sort of coming to the end of the hurricane season in the Bahamas. And we'd contracted the rig with Stena, the IceMax, one of the most capable rigs in the world, to arrive between the 15th of December and the 1st of February. And they've nominated to come early in that window. So we're gearing up for a spud on the structure with a pre-drill, as I said, 770 million barrels before Christmas.
Yeah. Malky, I might just also add, from a commercial point of view, I mean, we're looking at a project that benefits commercially from being in a very good location. You're very close to the Gulf of Mexico, all the infrastructure, all the services you need, and a project that has attractive fiscal terms from the government of the Bahamas, commensurate with a frontier project of this nature. So whilst the eye is on the prize for these, the multi-billion barrel outcome, we've stated many times that the economics here are very good, even at a small, relatively small 200 million barrel discovery, and the project is very robust, even at the current low oil prices. So from a commercial point, Simon gave you the sort of the technical view.
Yeah.
Commercially, this is a very, very attractive project as well.
I guess the other thing that, sorry, Malcy, the other thing that sort of people are interested in at the moment, of course, is we're in a COVID world. What are the nature of the protocols and procedures that we've got in place to ensure that we can sort of stick to that timing? And we've brought on board Dr. Gogner, who recently was the Chief Medical Officer of the Australian Border Force. So dealing with this kind of movement of people day in, day out, dealing with the sort of spread of the disease and the protocols necessary to ensure you've got a rig that stays free. So he's helping us. And equally, Stena have operated continuously in the North Sea and indeed in Guyana with Exxon. So we've got every confidence in the processes, the procedures, the protocols that we can put in place to ensure that we'll have continuous operation during this period.
Okie doke. Simon, you mentioned briefly just then if the well was to be a success. So my next question is obviously what happens if the well comes in, apart from the obvious, but I'm talking about future drilling plans, partnering, farming out, and so on. Where do you go from here if P1 comes in?
Well, I guess the obvious, as you stated, is my phone will be ringing off the hook with one of those various majors on the phone to us. But one of the key aspects of siting the Perseverance well in the north is really development of a fracture system. I think we believe that not only will an active fracture system maximize the chances of success, maximize the chance of oil into the wellbore, but one of the key future economic issues will be the way that the wells flow. We believe that if you take the rather brittle carbonate rocks and fold them into the structure system that we have here, the fold system that we have here, then you'll get fracture permeability. So whilst we know from the offset wells we've got considerable porosity, it's the fracture permeability that will drive producibilities of the wells. So as we go forward in terms of the key task for appraisal, it will be to establish the flow system through that fracture system. But certainly as we finish Perseverance well, the hurricane season in the Bahamas starts again in July. So from a purely Bahamas Petroleum point of view, then that would mean that the next appraisal well we would be setting up to drill come the end of 2021, early 2022, to the extent that it's appropriate. And we haven't commenced or indeed finished negotiations with other parties.
I think it's safe to say, Malcy, I'm going to be very busy. If P1 comes in, I mean, it's a slightly trite observation, but if you find a couple of billion barrels not too far from Florida and the largest oil market in the world, it's not just material for us. It's not just transformation for the nation of the Bahamas. It's very material for every major oil company out there. And so, as Simon sort of joked, but quite genuinely, the phone will ring off the hook.
Yeah, and to be honest, we know that, for someone like me who's followed the company for so many years, we know that you've had a long history of doing farm out negotiations. So, they all know your number and you know theirs. So I guess that won't be too difficult at all.
Well, there's a lot of people that have done, complete technical due diligence on the assets. And, a while back, we were actually paid for exclusivity. I think it's probably true that a lot of companies expected to outlast us or that we would go bust. And, we've done neither. We've managed to keep going. With the license tenure completely unequivocally sorted for us in 2019 by the government, then we've moved quickly over the period to crystallize value through the drilling of Perseverance 1. So we're very pleased about to have done that.
Good stuff. Now, I'm going to move away slightly now from the Bahamas because, as we said at the beginning, things have changed dramatically with the company recently. Now, in recent months, I'd say that in a number of ways you've expanded, diversified BPC, and to an extent de-risked the company in a number of ways, geographies, etc. So your most recent deal is the acquisition of Columbus Energy. You mentioned in your initial words that it's opened up possibilities in Trinidad and Tobago, and obviously that includes the onshore production which you have, which we know that you're looking to boost, but also you've got high return exploration in the Southwest Peninsula where Columbus had drilled Saffron 1. Why don't you talk us through how Columbus is good for you in its different ways?
Oh, well, I might start that one off, Malcy. I mean, one of the things that occurred to us as the world has changed quite rapidly is that the days when you could have a company that was focused on a single asset doing a single thing are becoming kind of remote. And the investing community, they want diversity, they want risk spread, and they want asset spread. Okay, and so the merger with Columbus was the thing that created that for us. As Simon mentioned, a spread of assets with diversity. Now, we've still got all the same access to the exploration project in the Bahamas. We have access to a known discovery at Saffron, so more exploration upside, but that is onshore, that can be brought on much quicker. And we have existing producing fields. We have cash flow, immediate, accessible cash flow. We've been very clear that we believe we can grow that cash flow quite dramatically. So we had a good look at the assets in due diligence. We believe that we can take the assets from their current production levels to around 2,500 barrels a year by the end of next year. And that produces cash. And that means we can cover our overheads, we can cover the costs of the business, and we can make a contribution to the ongoing exploration capex. So fundamentally changes the investment proposition that is BPC. We are no longer just one well in the Bahamas. We are that plus a whole lot of other things as well. Diversifies risk.
I guess, it's an existing oil province, Trinidad, and I guess a lot of people have had a go at it. Certainly from our point of view, Nathan Rayner, our operations manager, Eytan, and I work together at Arrow Energy, Dart International, and that whole kind of manufacturing approach, that sort of factory of wells approach, is what we think will stand us in good stead as we seek to turn around the portfolio in Trinidad. At its simplest, it's a numbers game. How many wells can you keep on at any one time? And we've already set an additional rig. So through Columbus, we own 2 workover rigs. So we've already put a third into action. Then we've got a number of projects to enhance production there through EOR techniques. Fairly straightforward. So we've got water injection and CO2 injection into the fields that are producing at the moment. So as Eytan says, lots of technical options to boost production and boost that cash flow. And then, of course, you've got the sort of the bluer sky, the appraisal of Saffron, and then the huge potential in the Southwest Peninsula. So the important thing I think that I emphasize is the nature of the onshore assets. The cycle time from deployment of capital to generation of cash is really quite short as well. So certainly it gives us huge optionality. And just to emphasize, all of the assets that we have in Trinidad are all 100%. So in terms of the timing and the deployment of that capital, it's entirely sort of up to us, as it were.
Just to pick up a couple of points on that, if I may, Simon. Firstly, we know that Columbus had to a certain started to farm out the process on Saffron 2. I knew that there were stories that you were taking that back in-house. And secondly, you have got a deal with Predator with regard to the CO2 EOR. What are your thoughts on those two situations?
Yeah, certainly our preference would be to bring Saffron 2, the drilling of Saffron 2 in-house. We've already contracted a couple of guys to do post-mortems on both the geology, the subsurface, and the drilling execution. And we're already in the planning stage for that next well. Certainly, that would be our preference to drill it ourselves. We don't see too much upside really in subbing out equity to allow somebody else to sort of drill it for us. On the Predator thing, the project is sort of in phase 3 at the moment. It has had CO2 injected into the ground, and what we were waiting for was ministerial approval for the injection of further gas, the actual production facilities, and the ability to produce from one of the paired wells. So literally, we've just received that, and so we'll be looking to produce that AT5X well just to see what the incremental production from that Predator injected gas is.
Excellent. And moving on to Suriname, as I see you've got an onshore play there, maybe another 500 barrels a day. What does the Suriname play offer you guys?
Well, this goes back to sort of Hardman days, which of course was the sort of genesis of the Bahamas project, and indeed we held assets in Trinidad and Tobago. But a lot of interest offshore in Suriname at the moment, but this is onshore. You'll know that there's the Tamborajo field onshore, 1 billion barrels in place. And this is essentially an extension on trend. So areas that have been identified by seismic and indeed adjacent wells, but left unswept areas of oil. And so the plan is relatively straightforward to drill into these unswept accumulations of oil. Put a pump in the well, produce it, and then indeed truck it to the local refinery and sell it. So, and then repeat and repeat. So it's a very easy way of monetizing a relatively shallow, low-cost resource.
Yeah, I mean, Malcy, just on that, it's basically money. You sell what you produce, you monetize it immediately.
Yeah.
There are other onshore licenses in Suriname that, as Simon mentioned, all the interest in Suriname at the moment is offshore, but there are other onshore licenses that all have very similar characteristics to the one we have. And I think the state oil company is looking to see how we go on this initial license. We're relatively confident that if we do well there, not only will we be able to build production on this license, but we'd be in the running for a couple of other licenses that have the same sort of low-cost, quick cash flow characteristics. And then Suriname's a pretty hot address at the moment.
Yeah.
So they've just announced that they're going to be doing a shallow offshore licensing round. So it's a good place to be operating, and it's in. For us, it's now almost an adjunct of Trinidad. We can service it out of our Trinidadian office with our Trinidadian people, staff. So it's not a distraction, and it's just another way of building production quickly.
Now, I guess that Nathan and you guys from the Arrow team will know how to handle that pretty well.
Yep.
Now, while nobody was looking, guys, you snuck in with an offshore license in Uruguay a little while ago. I have to say that I couldn't possibly have guessed you might do that. And I read it as being another 1 billion barrels of oil potential. What's the plans for this one?
Well, we were pretty proud of that in the sense that the way they run the system in Uruguay is they run a licensing bid twice a year. And it's an open process. Anyone can participate. In order to participate, you have to pre-qualify. And so we went through the job of pre-qualifying. We were pleased that they accepted all of our credentials. And it just so happens that because of COVID, in the most recent licensing round, very few people, if not none, applied. And there was this one license that we'd had our eye on for a while. Now, I liked it because it reminds me exactly of the Bahamas 10 years ago. It's very large. There are existing wells. There's existing seismic. There's a an estimate of about 1 billion barrels of potential resource. It's in shallow water. It's in a country with good fiscal terms, stable government, good regulation. And because no one else was bidding, we were able to essentially bid a work program that's more or less an option fee. We have to spend a few $100,000 a year on seismic reprocessing and a bit of G&G work, and we get to hold the license for 4 years and see what happens. And Simon will tell you technically that it's got a lot of parallels to the plays in Guyana.
Well, yeah, we'd obviously been looking at being able to diversify that offshore exploration risk and casting an envious eye at the prospectivity in Guyana and Suriname and looking around that Atlantic margin as to where we could lay down and get some acreage that had a similar sort of play system, very similar sort of characteristics. And certainly, I think if you look at our website, you can see sections there that look very similar to other locations on both sides of the Atlantic to that Atlantic margin. Obviously, it's immature. There have been a number of wells there, but as Eytan said, our challenge will be to reprocess or to acquire and then reprocess some 2D and then mature up those prospects over 3-4 years to see if they're valid drilling targets.
Indeed. I'm going to move on to finances now, guys. You have put in place a financial structure that sort of does most things. It strengthens the balance sheet and gives you options with debt as well as equity fundings you've had. You know, there are two things here. First of all, maybe you could talk through the different debt and your views on equity funding, and also, you know, how you're going to structure it together in terms of as BPC goes forward. I mean, I'm thinking in particular, as we've talked about before, that actually, you know, this and the Columbus deal and everything else is meaning that, you know, BPC isn't any longer considered to be a sort of one-trick pony, and you can't, you know, in the old days you found it difficult to go to capital markets with just this well to finance. So, how have things changed on the structure of your financing?
Well, I might take that one to start with. It's my area. We about 18 months ago, Malcy, we set out our stall and we said we're going to do this in a measured, thoughtful way. Okay, we're not just going to rush out and raise as much money as we possibly can from any possible place. We said what we're going to try and do is match our capital needs to the capital we have, diversify our sources of funding so we're not beholden to any one particular source of funding, and provide ourselves with flexibility. You know, because the flexibility is important. You're drilling a well. You may need more money. You may need less money. You may meet contingencies. You may not meet those contingencies. You may have success and need to do a whole lot of extra tests. So you need to have access to capital, but you don't necessarily need it, and you don't necessarily need to suffer the dilution or the cost up front. So with that sort of strategic background, we set about the task. We've done a series of things. I won't go through them all, but essentially where it brings us today is we have about $23 million in cash at the bank. We have no debt. And then we have an undrawn convertible facility from some people in Australia who were initial backers of Arrow and Dart and the companies we'd worked at before. They made a lot of money there and they were very happy to support us in our next endeavor. And we have a series of other potential sources of capital. We've mentioned that we're trying to build production in Trinidad. If we do, that produces free cash. We're trying to build reserve base in Trinidad. If we do, we can get reserve base lending facilities. We have farming discussions going on, as we mentioned. We have all these different sources of capital. But as we stand today, we have a very clear line of sight to more than $40 million of capital against a well in the Bahamas, which we've stated publicly has a cost estimate of about $21 to $25 million, plus or minus $5 million of contingency, and a work program in Trinidad and Tobago and Suriname, which I guess is, it can be as big or as small as we want. As Simon mentioned, we own 100%. We control the pace of things. The more money we have, the more we can spend, the more we can do, but we're not under an obligation to do it. So we're very, very well set up at the moment in terms of finances. The best we've been in a long time. And we're all set up to drill the well in the Bahamas and to progress the business in the other places.
I guess I'd just add that just to emphasize, I mean, you know, you always want more. But I guess in this instance, if we had more, we could do more. And I guess that's the value of having the portfolio and the range of opportunities that we now have. It's not a question of just doing a project. We have a business as well, which has a whole range of different outlets that we could invest in various different states of maturity. But again, coming back to that Trinidad and Suriname piece, it's onshore. You know, the cycle time between putting the capital into a project and actually seeing the returns being that close to infrastructure and that close to the sales point is really very quick. And that's a huge advantage to this portfolio that we have.
Lovely, thank you for that. I do need to ask what is going to be, nowadays it'll be a regular question you and everybody else gets, is how BPC is set for the growing ESG agenda within the investment marketplace and the energy sector in general. Have you got any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I guess this is work in progress. Certainly publicly, we're committing to producing an ESG report or strategy and report early in 2021 as we kind of migrate from being just an exploration company into an exploration and production company. But in many ways, Malcy, it's what we've been doing over the last 8 years in order to socialize and ensure that people understand within the communities and amongst stakeholders what we're actually up to in the Bahamas. We've been communicating broadly across the communities in the Bahamas over that period of time. We've invested in people. So as I mentioned, Dr. Gogner earlier, a hugely skilled individual who will manage our HSE tasks. And he'll be managing the ESG process. We also have in the Bahamas an extraordinarily skilled Bahamian lady with 17 years of environmental work under her belt, who's essentially managed the environmental authorization process that we managed to go through successfully in the Bahamas. And you'll recall in February this year, we received environmental authorization for the well. So it's certainly many of the aspects of ESG we've been working on. One of the key things that we will be working on going forward and as part of that strategy is measurement. We need to understand what it is that we have, what it is that we're emitting, what is the nature of the polluting aspects of the assets that we have in order to set targets to reduce that. And so measurement will be the immediate short-term target, and we've already got people ongoing in the field, embarking on those kinds of tasks. So focus on measurements, focus on targets, work in progress, people to carry it out, but early in 2021 for delivery.
Good stuff. Now, I'm coming to the end of our allocated time here, guys. So my last question is in two parts. Second part is the same as it always is, but the first part is, I'm just wondering what you consider your responsibility is for being about to drill probably the most exciting wildcat well that's been drilled in the market, in the oil sector for a very long time, given how long people have waited for this. And the second part of the question is obviously, patient shareholders have been waiting for a really long time for this. You've described in detail the business, which is absolutely great. I always ask people where they think they will see the company in 18 months' time. So if either of you could answer either part of that question, I'd be really grateful.
Well, I guess in terms of the first part, I mean, the responsibility is huge on us. I mean, I've been with this project since its inception in 2005. And there's been many times in the last sort of 10 years when, we've been fairly low, but, we've stuck with it. And the important thing is that, we as a team have stuck with it. And so we're absolutely determined to see this through. And even to the extent that clearly, as individuals, we're working very hard on the project to be able to deliver the well within the immediate short-term time frame. But I just emphasise, Malcy, that we're not a one-trick pony anymore.
Yeah.
So whilst perseverance is hugely important for us, I'd hope shareholders will see the value in the fact that we now have a broader portfolio, a broader base, such that whilst certainly the value uplift that we will get from the Bahamas is huge, but we've actually got a very sound cash-generating business as well.
So, and Malcy, just to add from my end, I mean, two things. One is we, the staff, the management of the company, we're all very heavily invested in this. We're quite large shareholders in our own right. We've been with it for a long time, so we are very committed to seeing the outcome. And the other thing, I mean, I think the oil industry sometimes gets a bad rap, but genuinely, this is transformational for the people of the Bahamas. You know, this puts a huge amount of money into the treasury. It enables the nation of the Bahamas to redefine itself. And that might sound all sort of nice and new agey, but I worked in Indonesia, Simon worked in Indonesia, we've worked in India. You see the positive impact that these things can have. And so this is very genuine, at least on my part, that it's nice to be able to work in a project where you've carried it on your shoulders for a long time, you have a big responsibility, but you actually can make a difference. And so, we're all very excited to see what happens here.
And where do we see ourselves in 18 months? I think we kind of touched on that earlier. My phone's been ringing off the hook. And indeed, we're thinking about how to appraise a structure that's 80 kilometers long with a discovery well sitting on top of it. But I mean, that's quite trite. But I mean, again, we also will have expected to develop and expand production in Trinidad, appraised saffron, and indeed have a good crack at what's in our onshore exploration hopper in order to really expand that reserve base in Trinidad. So, like I said, if we had more, we could do more, but we've got lots of options. But I think the other thing to emphasize is the team as well. We mentioned that the team's committed, but the team has the skills to actually carry this out as well, safely, responsibly, and indeed deliver the kind of outcomes that we've highlighted through this discussion.
Well, Simon and Eytan, thank you very much indeed for taking time out late in the evening for you guys to speak to me about the really exciting prospects for BPC across the board. And I look forward to seeing how it goes, and I wish you all the very best of luck as you say you drill one of the most exciting wildcat wells that we've seen for a long time.
Thanks, Malcy.
Thank you.
Today, my guests have been Simon Potter, who's the CEO, and Eytan Uliel, who is the Commercial Director of Bahamas Petroleum. I've been Malcolm Graham Wood doing my CEO interview for Core Finance. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye now.